Hello, and welcome to the online training course for roster judges. As we get started, we want to thank you for signing on as a precinct election official. You're a vital part of making sure that every eligible voter can vote and that all necessary information is obtained for voters coming to your station. In this video, we'll cover your duties on Election Day, especially focusing on setting up of your station, assisting a voter with an electronic poll book, and the process for closing at the end of the day. Throughout this video, we'll have several knowledge checks to make sure you've grasped key points and a short quiz at the end of the video. You will need to pass the quiz to move on to the in-person part of your training, where you will work with scenarios for processing voters as you will do on Election Day. This video will not cover all the steps you take to process voters at your station. This will be the primary focus of your in-person training. Remember, you can review this video as many times as you like in order to feel comfortable with your duties on Election Day. As a precinct election official, you're part of a team. Each person has their own important part to play at the polls to make democracy work. Each location is headed up by a voting location manager, or VLM. You'll hear that acronym a lot during this video in your in-person training. Most locations also have a voting location deputy, or VLD, who assists the VLM and is trained specially to help you if any questions arise. The training manual is set up with sections for each poll worker position on Election Day. Your section is tabbed in gold and says Roster Judge. Your location will have several people designated as roster judges on Election Day. As a roster judge, it's your job to set up electronic poll books, also known as EPBs. The EPB contains an electronic roster of all registered voters in Franklin County. As a roster judge, it's your job to greet and process voters. Today, you'll learn the basics of how to operate the electronic poll book and assist voters. During your in-person training at a later date, you'll experience more complex voting situations and be able to ask questions of your instructor. You'll also check for valid identification, which can include either photo or non-photo ID. As a roster judge, it's your job to determine if voters are regular or provisional, which can include some additional steps that can be completed at a table with paper ballots. We'll be covering the specific differences in a module later today. As a roster judge, it's your job to print and issue authority to vote slips and issue blank ballot cards to prospective voters. Some voters are required to vote provisionally. They receive a reason for paper ballot slip. You'll also be asked to participate in keeping track of the number of voters that come into your polling location at certain parts of the day. This is accomplished by looking at the check-in number at the center of the taskbar of the electronic poll book. When the voting location manager or voting location deputy asks, just give that number. As a roster judge, it's part of your duties to assist voters who are in the wrong polling location and direct them to the correct polling location. Next, let's talk about setting up your location.